I'll just remove the mute bar right here, and I think audio is good across the board. Looks like Twitch has finally stopped overreacting, and my computer is not on fire, which means it's time.
Yay.
It's time for fanfiction. And I'm not really sure what to start the night off with. Do you have any preferences tonight, Max?
Not really. I'm gonna be honest, this is an odd combination in this chat right now, so...
Oh, yeah, yes. Alright, well, then I'll just pick one at random. Hello, Internet. This is your host tonight, Sneaky Devil, Fanfiction Contempt Theater 9004, episode 42. Let me just transition. There we go. So, Bleach. How much do you know about Bleach, Max?
Been a while.
Fair enough, but you know about it.
I mean, I read through the entirety of it, but that was a while ago.
Excellent. Then we'll do this one. Oh, God. Yep, I see why I put this story. I see why I put this story on the tagline tonight. Bleach. Monster. How many lives would you sacrifice for someone you love? It's a question she was once asked in an ethics class in another lifetime. Now, decades later, as she stares at the boy sleeping peacefully next to her, she finds that she still doesn't know the answer. In which a self-insert original character has the dubious pleasure of being reincarnated as the twin of Aizen Sosuke. Discontinued. For probably smart reasons, one might say.
Maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like writing a fanfic where you're like, yeah, I'm the twin sister of Adolf Hitler, and I'm gonna write a story about how I love him. It's like, you sure you want to go down that road, Chief? And it's got unfortunately, despite its mere 16 chapters and 50k words, that's right, 16 chapters and 50k words. So that's going to put it at around 3k words per chapter. It's got 2,300 favorites. Yeah. Oops, I reincarnated as Hitler's twin. Has 2,300 favorites. I'm...
Not really surprising.
Yeah, it's on one hand it's not surprising. On the other hand, I'm very disappointed with the Bleach fandom. Very disappointed with the Bleach fandom.
It is the Bleach fandom.
I mean, where it is. Oh, we're gonna do Ace. It's got 855 reviews.
Okay, well, it's got some pull then.
Oh no. Oh no.
Wait, updates on AO3.
Oh no. Oh no! There is only one reason why someone would discontinue a story to keep updating it on AO3. And it has to do with the rating of the story.
Oh no. Oh. The last chapter is called Love and Submission as well. Oh dear.
Oh no. Ah. genuinely well written and gripping self insert. I feel like it could pass as an original fanfic. As an original tale than a fanfic. I feel like a story where you eat as Hitler's twin pass as an original non-fanfiction story. Oh God. You know, Max, maybe for our story idea after all. If this is getting popular.
We don't talk about that one on stream.
Holy shit, this story is amazing. You have a talent for making the reader really get into the head, whoever you are writing. Some authors are good at doing that for their main characters, but for you, it's the character I have read from you. From the morally gray, borderline black at main character, to the random douchebags who owned her.
I'm sorry. What?
I don't like where this is going. You've written their personalities and motives so clearly, I am in awe. I'm not sure if you'll continue this fic with more prompts or not, but I dearly enjoyed what you've written. Also, apparently, according to this reviewer, the author believes that Eisen's last name is Eisen. Okay. I love their relationship so much. Oh, Eisen. People really am I?
On the one hand, I won't try and make an argument that that is a completely unfair comparison.
You're right. Hitler was nowhere near as bad.
Wouldn't Ewok be Hitler in this situation, considering he wants actual genocide?
Oh
or
no, Eisen did the genocide
Spirit
too.
Reapers?
Yeah, no,
No,
Eisen
he
did the
did. No, he
genocide
did
too.
he did the ethically questionable and completely unethical human experiments. I don't think Eisen
No, he
did
he
any.
was part of the he was behind the ethnic cleansing of the Quincy's. He was behind that part.
I I I thought it was someone else.
He also experimented on people a lot. Yeah, he did do that. He also kind of did want ultimate power to genocide everyone that disagreed with him. So he could, you know, change the rules of life and death to better fit his worldview, and everyone that disagreed with him would be annihilated. So he's basically a, you know,
Okay. I'm going through. Wait.
his list of war crimes.
This isn't what I want to. Apparently, the the last arc that occurred in Bleach was called the Quincy Blood War,
Yeah.
which I guess means that we have literally no information on the extermination of the Quincy for some reason. Oh. Yeah, no, we don't actually know. We don't know who started we don't know who made the final call on time to cleanse the Quincy, but we can't really blame Eisen. Not sure where you got that info from either.
I don't know either, because I really don't read Bleach stories. I think I have like 2 favorited Bleach stories among my 1,000 plus. Like, I really stay away from them. Let's see, is there any other good reviews in here? Okay, so pretty much the entire story is written out in snippets.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This guy is complaining about how many filler chapters there are.
Just like Bleach.
Yeah, just
Well, the
like
anime,
Bleach.
at least. Just like
Just
the
like
anime.
Bleach. I don't know, man. I kind of consider the whole full bringing arc a filler chapter. To be
Yeah,
real.
but that wasn't a third of the series though. That was actually pretty small compared to everything else.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair enough point.
Also, it really wasn't unnecessary. It really should have just been an epilogue of like, yeah, this is how things are, and
Wow.
he's just adjusting.
I would just like to point out, this is the first chapter. This is the
Yes.
story that has 2,300 favorites. This.
Yes. Yes, it is.
God, I fucking hate people. Yeah, let me sit down and labor upon several thousands words and make an intricate world. And oh, the person who posted the word boobs got 100 times more follows and favorites than I did. Ah, okay. You see. Very well. I hate this generation, Max. I hate Zoomers. I hate the upcoming generation so fucking much. Hands
I don't blame
around
you.
your throat, squeezing with bruising force as you panic because this shouldn't be happening and you're only 20 and you heard of things like this happening to people in the news and whispered warnings not to walk after dark, and it was always supposed to happen to someone else. Not you, not here with behind your campus library or no gun zone where it's supposed to be safe. Well, technically speaking, no gun zones are the least safe portions of the country. You were supposed to do things with your life. You wanted to travel the world and study medicine. You weren't supposed to end up as a statistic. Unfortunately, you are always fated to end up as a statistic. You claw at the iron strong grip, cutting off your airflow, drawing blood with your fingernails, but it's not enough. Never enough, and you feel so weak, as helpless as a worm speared on a hook. There was adrenaline driving your motions and desperation clouding your mind. So again, this is another thing. This story is actually technically illegal by fanfiction.net standards, because this is written all in second person, which is not allowed on fanfiction.net. Because you also don't think in second person. So if this is supposed to be a, personal dialogue with your personal monologue, monologue with yourself, you wouldn't be saying, you aren't supposed to do this, your throat begins to constrict. You'd be like, oh god, my throat's constricting, I wasn't supposed to be a statistic, I wasn't supposed to die here. I mean, now, don't get me wrong, you can have thoughts that are directed at yourself saying you, but the narrative perspective wouldn't be in second person. Is that clear?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. So that hurts me even more that this sort of story actually got there. So anyway, she dies because she got choked to death on a campus, and then she's born as a baby, and their names are Sayori and Sosuke. Even though that's, you managed to reverse the reverse, cool. Yeah, so their last names are Aizen. It's Sayori Aizen and Sosuke Aizen. Cool, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was chapter 1, and I really don't feel like reading any more of this crap-ass story. Honestly, I don't know why. This is so important. I have a new story format. This is illegal. Saying if this is just an author's note or something. No, okay, no, it's an actual chapter. Okay. I've posted this on my Tumblr already, but regarding to love a monster, I've lost all inspiration to keep writing it. This is me being shocked. Notice how I'm not. I'm not altogether happy with how the story is, and I don't have the energy to rewrite it. I don't know why you would bother. However, I don't want to give the story up entirely, as I'm rather attached to Sayuri. I've long since discovered that my favorite scenes are the ones that people tell me to write. So I figure, instead of discontinuing it, I can try to continue it on a prompt basis. There will be no cohesive linear plot, but I'll try writing short stories based on possible scenes that people want to see. To give you an example, I'm now going to write the following scene. If you didn't read this author's note, go back and read this author's note, or you will be confused as hell. Alright, so then what is love and submission? Prompt, tell us about Sayuri's Bankai. Love and submission. Bankai, I'm getting out of here.
Move.
Nope.
Why is
Nope.
the chapter title
Nope.
about?
Nope. Nope. No.
Don't, Max. Just don't.
Not getting involved in that one.
But yeah, we should hit the eject button.
So our new story is going to be a My Hero Academia.
All right.
My Hero Academia Plus Ultra, a very creatively named story. I assure everyone, definitely not 29,000 other My Hero Academia stories called My Hero Academia Plus Ultra. It's a very original name. On hiatus. AU.
No shit.
Wow.
All that.
It's what's the phrase, Max? What's the colloquial phrase? It's a story in 2 pages. Hiatus. AU.
Hang on, I feel like it's less than that.
Story in 2 frames. Something like that. What the fuck is this? What? Izuku both and
No.
wow. I guess this is the equivalent of Naruto is the 10. I guess this is the My Hero Academia equivalent. I can't possibly why this story could ever do this with both the largest mentor character and the largest villain being taken out of the picture. Can't imagine how that could make a story go on hiatus.
No, it's fine.
Literally, all of the conflict is gone. Can't imagine why a fanfiction author who is writing a power fantasy would have trouble continuing a story.
Yeah.
Yet, despite his incredible potential, he has to work twice as hard to make both quirks his own. Not to mention the troubles and challenges he has to face with his new quirks. So you can copy the pro heroes, right? Jiro spoke to Izuku in a challenging tone. What about our quirks? Can you copy those as well? I'm actually really amused by this premise because there is already a character in this story of canon that can copy someone's quirk. He's in class 1B.
Yep.
So it's kind of weird to me that they're trying to set this up as like Izuku's going to be discriminated against for having a quirk that copies quirks. Because
That's already happening.
it's already a thing. 1,000 words, that's very impressive. But unfortunately, these 9 chapters of 2 years.
Actually, there's another issue with apparently him having all for one. It's not copying, it's straight up stealing. That
Yeah.
would cause some problems.
Yeah, no, that would, yes.
Which, hey, the author is saying, like, can you copy the powers as well? Like, either
Yeah.
he's hidden that ability for good reason,
Well,
or
judging
the
by the
author's an
fact,
idiot and doesn't understand how all for one works, despite it being. I'm
no,
pretty sure all for one works
I'm
right off,
gonna
but
I'm
we
gonna
are told
explain this to you, Max.
he
So,
steals them.
judging by the photo that the author is using for the cover art, it shows a picture of both Mina and Izuku having the same quirk temporarily. And from that, I'm going to make the assumption here, the deduction, one might call it if they're feeling fancy, that Izuku is going to copy someone's quirk, because we know All Might can give people quirks as well. So, One for All can give quirks out as well. Izuku's going to take someone's quirk, copy it to One for All, to All for One, One for All, which we know is a stockpiling quirk that copies quirks, and then he's going to give the person back their quirk. So now he's going to have a copy using One for All, and they're going to have their quirk back with him using All for One.
You're giving this author a lot of credit.
Like I said, this is just a deduction. I mean, he spent 100,000 words on this one, so that's just my assumptions here. We'll see if he even explains that in the first chapter, but I doubt he's going to get that far into the intricacies of his story. Let's check out the review. Great story. When next update? Update, please. Love story. The part when Deku said that him and Bakugo wouldn't be friends anymore made me cry. It's heartbreaking to see. Deku just showed that All Might's quirk that he didn't even copy and rather inherited it. What? I don't get how Izuku's quirk can be called All for One. All for One takes people's quirks away, and you can either keep them to use or give them away to others. It treats quirks as a commodity to be stolen or given. Izuku's quirk mimics the effects of existing quirks and is dependent on Izuku's knowledge of the quirk. What? So,
As said.
Nightcrawler? Am I thinking of the... I wish Atin was here, because he would know better than me. There's Rogue! That's what her name was, right? The one who could copy people's powers?
Yeah, the Southern Belle, the best character in the original 90s animated.
Yeah.
Yep.
This, I guess, is a Rogue situation? With, like, more... like...
I'm not really sure.
Because it says information to be copied and applied. Yeah, his quirk is more like Monoma's than All for One's. This is a really weird because like this, I just so the whole thing with quirks are supposed to be a biological nature thing. Don't even get me started how fucking dumb that is. But okay, fine. It's a biological genetic thing. Fine. Why would your quirk's ability to copy someone else's quirk be dependent on how good you know about their quirk?
Yeah,
That
he
makes
calls it all for one, but
yeah, it makes no fucking sense. No fucking sense at all. Because it's like Monoma doesn't need to know about someone's quirk to take it. All for One doesn't need to know about someone's quirk to take it. One for
yeah.
All
In
doesn't need to
fact,
know about someone's quirk to take it.
Monoma is a bit different from all for one in that like he can copy it, but he can use the quirk. It just comes down to like, okay, well, I'm not really sure of the best way to use it, but I know what it does. Whereas
Um,
all for one seems to get everything.
Sort of. I don't think we've
Well,
ever been.
Monomath also has a shit ton of caveats too, from what I remember. Like there's something of a time limit, how
Yeah.
many he can have copied at once.
Yep.
It's limited use. It's not as effective as well, so he has to get creative in how he uses it, I think.
No, the effectiveness is the same. The problem is that his body is not genetically inclined to quirks.
No,
So,
right. So backlash would be like if he tried to
Right.
use one for all, that arm is gone.
Or even a simpler one. So say he copies Bakugo's quirk, he doesn't have resistance to heat or concussion.
Yeah.
While other things like copying Sato's sugar quirk would be a lot easier for him. He would probably have really shit recovery from it because Sato's body is basically built to recover from his sugar highs. Well, he's not, so he would probably crash even harder. I know they've shown before where he's copied some quirks that he's tried to use, and then using that quirk backfired on him because it didn't. He doesn't have the genetic advantages that make that quirk actually usable in terms of combat. Like the reptile girl who can like dismantle her body. Like her body was genetically made to be dismantled and regrow limbs, but like if he used her quirk and like took off his arm and then he lost the quirk, he would just not have the arm anymore. Like he couldn't regenerate that arm.
Yeah.
So that's his caveats. But this one again, this one makes no sense. With this whole he needs to know about work to copy it. They're in school to learn about. It actively showed multiple arcs where the students learned that their quirks could do things they didn't even know about before. So what is the knowledge requirement here? Is he supposed to know more about the quirk than the person that has it to copy it? Because technically speaking, that they don't even know the quirk can do yet. So if he needs to know the information about the quirk, that implies that he would then need to know the information the person doesn't even know about their own quirk to copy it.
Probably trying to tie into the fact that he does all those journals.
Oh, I know they're trying to do that.
It's a stupid thing,
but it's stupid as hell.
Trying to put it into, yeah.
Yeah, and like I know they're trying to. I know they're trying to mend those two together, but it just doesn't work. Flat out, doesn't work because it's so circumstantial and it's convoluted. Like, keep it simple, stupid. What's this guy's power? He shoots tape out of his arms. All right, Like, why? Is it like good tape? Yeah, it's pretty good tape. It's adhesive on both sides. Oh, okay. All right, fine. And sometimes it's only adhesive to the side he wants it to be. All right, fine. Do we need to explain anything like how this works at all? Nah, he's got fucking rollers in his like elbows or some shit, and whatever, it works. All right, fine. Like, don't get complicated with it. He just has fucking tape elbows. Fine. Oh, what's this kid's part? His explodes. Like, all of his sweat, or just like the sweat he wants to explode? Oh, just the sweat he wants. Fine. And where does the sweat come from? Just his hands for now. All right, fine. Anything else? Nah, he can sort of like launch himself with it. Yeah, well, it's like, all right, fine. What's his perk? He can run fast. All right, nailed it. All right, moving on. You know what I mean? It's simple shit. Like if you actually look at all of the quirks, perks, whatever, all of the abilities of Class 1A, they're all super fucking simple. What does he do? He shoots fire. And what happens when he shoots fire? His body heats up. And he also shoots ice. When he shoots ice, he cools down. All right, next one. That girl can create shit. What can she create? Anything she knows about. All right, that sounds a little bit complicated. What does she need to know about? Pretty much everything. Molecules, stuff like that. She can fudge a bit, and it'll work less. But, you know, it works. All right, so how does she create all the shit? She uses fat cells. Doesn't that sound a little bit, not efficient? As fats are not great in terms of energy. Yeah, but, you know, it works. All right, fine, fair enough. Well, what's he do? His hair is sticky and bouncy. Oh. Anything else? No, that's about it. All right, fair enough. You see what I mean? No super complicated quirks. Like, no, I must study the blade for 29 years to perfect my knowledge of every single person's quirk. So once upon touching them, I may be able to copy them temporarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work. It's not complicated as hell. It's got tons of caveats to it. Now, don't get me wrong, caveats aren't bad. I love caveats. Gray knows how much I love caveats and flaws in powers. They're great. You know, Shiro's his name? The half hot, half cold guy?
Shoto,
there we go. Shoto is a great example of this. Because when he uses his cold arm, he gets cold. When he uses his heat arm, he gets hot. And if he uses them in equal measure, his body is fine. However, he does have a certain level of resistance to both hot and cold due to how his body operates. Perfect. Boom. There's a caveat that prevents him from using too much ice. There's a caveat that prevents him from using too much fire. And they actually fucking used that. Like, yes, sure, it was brought about by his whole stigma against using his fire, but it became part of his character that he got into situations where he couldn't keep using his ice because it was actively starting to damage him, which means he had to make character development choices. That's good. That makes your audience invested in that character. Now, was it wasted on the fact that it's Shoto? A little bit.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Caveats like Dark Shadow is another great one. Very powerful, but he's weak in the light. But if he gets too dark, like, oh, well, why doesn't he just get, like, fucking blackout conditions? Well, he gets kind of insane. And goes mad with power a little bit.
Uncontrollable.
Yeah. That's a great caveat, because again, that leaves both room for him to get stronger in the light and control himself in the dark. Great character arc right there. Boom, done. Sato is a great example of poor character arc. Does he have a caveat? Yes. He goes into a sugar high and then rushes down from the sugar high. Is that great for a character arc? No, not really, because it doesn't really leave anything to improve upon. Because, yeah, sure, you could train yourself to recover faster, quote unquote, from your sugar high, or maybe you take in more sugar, or you find out ways to extend your high, which is what Sato ended up doing. Is he figured out how to mediate? Yeah, mediate his high, where he didn't get as much strength immediately, but he could make it stretch out for longer. And so that's good and all.
Basically.
Yeah, but that's good.
Well, they also started shoveling sugar down his throat
Yeah.
to exercise the quirk.
Right. And that's good and all, but there's no real room for character development there. It's like, oh yeah, he had to eat a lot of food to get used to eating food. There's no
no development from his power. There's
Yeah.
only development from events around him.
Exactly.
Him
When
interacting
he's
with
supposed to use his power now, because now that his power creates a caveat for that. So yeah, that makes it good, but that requires more skill on the writer to put him into situations. Because again, the problem is again, he's not the main character. If he was the main character, you as a writer would be more capable to devote screen time to him, to show him in situations where he can't immediately use his strength, and that he has to come up with clever ways to defeat issues so he can save his strength for real problems. And as the non-main character, he doesn't really get that screen time to do it, which means that you can't just have him, like, both Todoroki and Tokiyami, or whatever his name is, Dark Shadow dude.
Tokiyama.
Yeah. Both of them can have side screen development, which is what I'm going to call for the side characters. So basically, they show up occasionally, they're shown training occasionally, and they're shown developing occasionally, and the audience more or less can just accept that their character arc is progressing when they get their occasional screen times. Because they have clear, definable, visual means of showing that. Like, oh, Todoroki's using his fire now. You know, that means he's progressing, getting over his trauma. Or Dark Shadow is in a dark room and was able to fight off a really tough guy for this one scene, allowing the main character to continue ahead, showing that Tokiyami has increased his control over himself and found peace, and etc., etc. And you can just have these scenes basically happen off on the side and occasionally show the audience this stuff and have these characters progress in the background. Sato, he shows up off screen and he's like, yo, hey, and you show him punching a dude, but he's not using his sugar yet. And then he shows up in another scene and he uses his sugar and punches a dude, and then the main character leaves that fight and moves on to the next one, and that's it.
The main problem with My Hero Academia is there's too many characters. There's
Obviously, yeah. When the story is...
It wouldn't be too many characters if it wasn't the fact that he does keep trying to put them in the... He tries to give them all some sort of screen time.
Yeah, that is
which,
the issue, yeah.
That was the... Too many characters isn't the problem. Too many pseudo-main characters is.
I think a good example of this is NCIS.
Okay, you're not wrong with that, but they also have enough screen time for each character now. Like, it's lasted so long, each character actually has good screen.
But my point is more comparing old NCIS to current NCIS. So old NCIS had a cast of about 5 characters that they occasionally every season rotated around. Yeah. While newer NCIS has about 14 characters, and especially in scenes that are where they're doing some detective work and they got a videotape footage and they're all gathered around the computer and they're making comments. And if you pay attention, occasionally there'll be one main talking guy, or everyone will say maybe at most 1 to 2 lines, because there's just so many characters and they can only spend so much time in one scene for the episode. They can't properly show off all of the characters anymore and have them develop. And they can only do that by, again, as you said, by just sheer number of seasons they've been running. They've been now able to develop all the characters over time. Honestly, the rotating cast isn't exactly the best for all situations. In a more modern environment, it actually is a good one. Unlike medieval fantasy-esque sort of stories, usually the cast isn't going to be rotatable because of just travelability, investment in the characters, You know, the genre of it being action.
Yeah.
So basically, it's you like for you know, let's go with One Piece. You can't really rotate the cast because the cast is the crew of the ship. You know,
Yep.
you can't really rotate that cast out with anyone because there's no real good way of saying, oh yeah, you know, it's been so long, so these people are just gonna leave now, and we're just gonna get new people, so care about them. You know, because it's
Remember how
yeah,
remember how poorly people took to that with Pokemon?
yeah, right,
Wow.
yeah,
Poor Brock and Misty.
yeah, exactly. And now don't get me wrong, they tried it and they actually did a decent job with it in, I believe it was Orange Islands, where they're like, oh, why isn't Brock coming with us? Oh, it's because he's actually got a job now and he's like trying to pursue his dreams of doing a sedentary lifestyle. So you're gonna have this other guy with you now. It's like, all right, fair enough, fine. And
Well, and May and I think her little brother Max, they were actually pretty good characters. What I remember of them. In
They were. That was
they
the
were for
Ruby
Emerald.
Sapphire one.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, and no, that was Honan. So that was your Sapphire and Ruby. Yeah. But the problem is that with the later seasons of Pokemon, seasons fucking Black and White and crap like that, is the characters that were leaving no longer had really any reason to leave. It was just like, all right, I'm going to the next region. All right, bye, Ash. We're just gonna leave you now, and wave goodbye.
Yes.
It's like, so what are you doing
around
with the
here.
rest of your life? Oh, I'm gonna keep doing this stuff where I travel around the world and shit. I'm just not gonna do it with you anymore. It's like, oh, all right, I guess. It, like,
Yeah.
it stopped being like, oh, I need to go manage the gym. I need to go be a medical doctor, and like it stopped being like actual real world reasons as to why they were leaving, and it started just being like, well, it's the end of the season now, so goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really like I don't remember May and Max just fucked off somewhere. It's like, when Misty left, it's because she was the gym leader, and her sisters were really pissed off that she left for so long.
Right, exactly.
Brock's dad came back to take over that gym, so it was like, you just find what you want to do,
not only
and Brock
that,
found what he wanted to do.
Not only that, Brock and Misty were both characters that ended up joining up with Ash for his journey because they were inspired by and motivated by the Ash's determination and dream. Meanwhile, Dawn, for example, you want to know how Dawn ends up with Ash?
I don't actually know. How did that happen?
I remember
the
watching
professor,
the episode way back.
Yeah, the professor straight shit just goes, hey, Ash, you know a lot of stuff, and Dawn doesn't, so take her with you.
18-year-old, you're on babysitting duty for the 14-year-old.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Hey, give him
Also, they really failed with the cast because normally when you're rotating a cast out, you don't want to rotate out the trope for a trope. So you don't want to rotate out the spunky redhead for another spunky redhead. You know what I mean? You want to bring someone new into the mix to change up interactions between the cast. But what they did with Pokemon is they literally just removed the character model but kept the personality.
Oh.
Because every single female that Ash ended up with would hit him, berate him, and be some sort of powerful, independent figure who's really going to make it one of these days, and they have a dream of something big. And every male figure is going to be along the lines of either a rival, so the first male figure he meets is typically his rival. The second male figure he meets is typically the food provider, caretaker, mediator, etc., etc. Literally
pervert.
just copy and fucking paste every single new season. That's just it. It doesn't matter who his companions are. It's the exact same fucking tropes. For the male, it's the exact same tropes as the female. They aren't even rotating out new personalities. It's the same fucking person, but different colors.
New primary color.
Yeah. You can see this Misty too is clearly different from Misty because she wears a blue shirt.
Females are coordinators for the Pokemon contest.
Sure. What?
The females are usually
Oh yeah, the females
season.
also tend to be Ash's opposite in opinions. So yeah, Pokemon contests in the later seasons. But they're also like where Ash sort of befriends and catches a Pokemon as they do. Usually the female is like going for the big, strong, powerful Pokemon, or they get some sort of rare Pokemon, or et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, we've gotten a little bit off topic, but I don't think anyone really cares because this is actually like educational stuff that we're talking about. Cast sizes and cast management and how to rotate out characters. As I said, the other point is I'll finish this up and we'll move on to the story.
Boy, I learned the hard way about cast management.
So the counterpoint to the cast size problem is modern stories that are either sci-fi, but you have to be careful. Just because it's sci-fi doesn't mean it's not fantasy in its structure. So just because it's taking place in the future, Mass Effect's a good example of this. Mass Effect I would quantify as a fantasy story, in that it's one lone gunman and his rowdy band against the universe.
Well, sci-fi and fantasy are generally thrown together for a reason, so...
I'm aware. But I would say sci-fi can also encompass, to a point, stories like... all that just sci-fi, science fiction. Because with Deus Ex, it's taking place in a city. You're doing stuff that happens in a city, like gangs and fighting and corporations and stuff, and you gotta stop attack and shit that happens in a city. And you're generally restricted to the city, going on a big adventure. You can going on, but it's not a world-trekking, globe-trotting, universe-spanning adventure. It's typically taking place in one location. Sort of like Dresden as well. I wouldn't call that sci-fi, but I also wouldn't really call that too much of a, fantasy story. I don't know. Atin would probably have a way better term for it than me. Because it's mostly just taking place in one general area, usually. And he's not going on some massive, globe-spanning adventure that ensures that he can't see the same characters again. And that's the sort of same trait that both Dresden and Deus Ex share, is that you continuously run into or interact with the same cast of characters, but not continuously. Whereas in a more adventure-based fantasy story, you have the same cast of characters continuously due to travel issues, basically. And so that's why it's easier to rotate out a cast, like with NCIS, of just like, oh, yeah, the cast rotated because the person got a promotion. And this is the new person assigned to the team. But you'll still see the promoted person occasionally, because just because they got promoted doesn't mean they're not still, they can still make quote-unquote cameos as far as the show is concerned. But
or the first rotation,
right, they're
dead.
Oh, right, yeah, the other obvious rotation is they're dead. But, they got a promotion, so they're still inside the district, and they're still, quote-unquote, doing things inside the building, but they're just not on that task force anymore. So they can still make cameos.
Transferred to another city or something.
Right. That's when there's no guarantee of cameo ever from them again. they're just like, oh, they're dead or they're transferred to a new city.
Even then,
That they wanted to sort of phase out so they could bring in new cast, but occasionally the person with the actor was open to, you know, coming back and doing like a brief cameo. They're like, oh, we really need this one detective who's really good at talking. He's a psychologist or whatever, and so they'll visit him again. They'll be like, you know, we got this case, and the person said this, and the other thing, and the guy's like, oh, well, that sounds a lot like this. Could be this thing. And they're like, oh, wow, thanks for putting us right back on track. You always know what to say. And then they'll wave goodbye. And it was like a 5-minute scene. But it was still, you know, like, oh, we can still talk to him because he's still, you know, in universe, Watsonianly in the building, and doylistically open for more cameos. But it's easier to rotate a cast in a modern static environment. Because both ease of travel, so it's not really that hard to go across country in the modern times or sci-fi times. It's also not that hard to meet up with a group anymore, unless that group is constantly on the move. But if it's a show about, you know, we're a band of people and we go from city to city, help solve major crime rings or whatever, and that's how you can rotate them out. So you have a main cast of like 3 or 4 people, but then you have like a side bonus cast for each new city they go to that they rotate out, so you can have a different set of characters interacting each time. In modern environments offer a different challenge than an adventure environment.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Not a fan of Chapter 1. You guys all remember when you got a TV show where they just kind of went over what happened in the previous episode and you're just sitting there being like, Jesus Christ, just get on with it. Why are you showing me this? Just start the episode already. That's how I felt reading Chapter 1. The actual story begins at Chapter 2. I recommend not reading Chapter 1 at all because it has no impact on the story. Whew.
I did like jump around the first chapter just to see there are some differences.
So
Like-
it's not something
But
to give a
it's
shit
kind
about.
of well, it's only really the first like maybe quarter, but the problem is it's all over the
Mhm.
place. That's the biggest problem.
I see.
Hmm.
Yeah, so anyway, blah blah blah. My name's Izuku Midoriya. I bet you're wondering how I got into this scenario right now. Blah 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 blah. Canon rehash. Blah 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 blah. Oh, and then I randomly met up with All Might, and All Might randomly was like, "Yo, I'm gonna give you my power now."
No.
Yeah. So
Yeah, just kidding.
yeah.
So
So get past Tomura's next bit, like right after this one, and that's where things start changing. But again, it's just kind of like haphazard all over the place. For half the chapter, it looks like.
okay, Jesus Christ, I'm really just not interested in this. He is not wrong. That guy who said Chapter 1 was horrible, because this is how you lose people. So we have italicized here that is semi in the present, semi in the past. Then we have
Mhm.
non-italicized text that is also semi in the present, semi in the past, because it's saying shit that's happening right now, but it's also saying shit that happened earlier. And then we have here is present stuff as well, and then more past stuff, and for some reason a line break that is supposed to be referencing a past flashback, and then more stuff that's happening currently right now. You damn cheater brat, you copy everything. Rah, rah, rah. And then for some reason we're just gonna skip straight to the USJ event. Oh no, we're skipping past the USJ event. Jesus Christ, okay. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're skipping past the USJ event to a different point in time when a different Nomu attacked Izuku in this AU, and Tamura was there, and they somehow didn't beat him during the USJ event, despite him having all of that power. But okay. And then Uraka was dead or some shit, and yeah. I'd rather risk injuring her if I use all for one for all, instinctively all for one. Uraka-san, teach me how your quirk works. Young man, I was hoping to talk to you about crap. It's like he's fucking jumping around a bunch. Like these non-pass statements are all disjointed with each other. Like
As I said,
yeah,
it
I know.
just jumps. This author seems to think that ADHD is the style to write in.
Yes, of course. I can sort of see where he's going with it, though. Again, this is a long-held rant, rant lecture, whatever you want to call it. It's a long-held set of statements I will always give. Is you have to write towards your medium, and right now, what he's trying to do is he's trying to do the classic. You see this a lot in the World War II of HBO-esque shows. Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, Pacific Assault, or whatever it was called, where it's a moment of high stress for the main cast that's currently being shown in the episode, and like say they're charging towards an objective and shit's exploding around them, people are being shot, and like every couple seconds they're charging towards their objective, they have a flashback, and it's like, oh, when we were at boot camp and the sergeant's shouting at us, and then it flashes back to the present where they're charging towards the objective again, and blank gets shot, and then he looks at blank, and has a flashback towards a point in time when he was talking with someone else earlier about blank and how they're worried about blank, and how blank's problem is this thing, and then it flashes forward again to now blank's dead on the ground, and their whole concern over blank meant nothing in the end, and it keeps doing this mid-action flashback. As each second they inch forward, they're having more and more flashes of story told, because they're trying to get you confused, because of the visual medium allows that, because it's supposed to convey that war is crazy and chaotic, and it does that job of you constantly flashing between all these things, because that is sort of the shit that you would be in a high stress environment doing. Like, you're just overloading effectively on stimuli.
Yeah.
The Pacific, yeah, The Pacific. That was another good show. Oh, that was such a good show. I love Band of Brothers and The Pacific. Band of Brothers is obviously superior, but can't win them all.
It was Pacific was made as a companion piece, apparently.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So it's no surprise on that regard.
It was great, though. No, don't get me wrong. I loved it, but in the end, Band of Brothers was just so good.
Yep. Good times back then.
Specifically, one good scene from Band of Brothers that I'm remembering is the church scene, where the guy was sitting in the church with his whole battalion, and then people would be disappearing one by one, and the narration was like, Gomez got shot in the leg. When we tried to go for him, shrapnel nearby took his head, and Gomez would vaporize, and it's basically a slower paced version of the overstimuli, and it's a good medium. But that scene, the church scene, where one by one the characters would disappear, that doesn't work in written. It can sort of work if you change it up to be like, I could see them now, all 44 members. No, wait. Gomez, you died when this happened, and then Gomez, disappears. but the impact is lost a lot. You'd have to change the narration a bit, but in the end, I believe the impact would be lost a lot because it was the visceral visual media of it that made the bigger impact than just saying, "Oh yeah, they disappeared." It's like, okay, you know, it's sad, but I'm just reading the words "they disappeared," and you're not getting the visual image of it, them disappearing before your eyes, where you would be if you were having a sort of PTSD-induced hallucination. And so what the author is doing is they're trying to mimic that visual style, and it doesn't work in writing because writing is more about pacing and flow of the words in the scene you're currently setting than it is about the contents of the scene itself. And the continuity of the scene you're setting as well is an important one. Shakespeare got that damn straight. Like, you didn't see Shakespeare writing plays where they constantly switch scenes every few dialogue lines. You know, they had a whole section where they would just say a bunch of shit, they would move on to the next scene. Yeah, occasionally you did have scenes that were like two actors walk on the stage, they say things to each other, and then the next scene happens. But that was like transitionary dialogue, effectively.
Yeah.
That's
Well, that's
not
also not fair because Shakespeare is such a freak of nature. Some of his best works hold up even today.
Oh, actually, I mean, you're not wrong.
Even some of them in the old English that he used.
Shakespeare was considered for his time completely outlandish in how his plays were written, in the contents of his plays, in the words he had his actors say for the plays, and how he had the actors interact with the audience for the plays. He was considered out there. He was considered completely unorthodox. And you didn't see him trying to do this. Because he understood to possibly a peak beyond I ever could of how to really work the medium he was writing in. So I'm just saying, you know, don't try to be the next Shakespeare unless you really, really believe you can. Because that's pretty much 90% of what Shakespeare was. Is he's self-assurance that what he was doing.
You like crafting music, and thinking you're the next Mozart, or something similar.
Yeah, basically, it's not so much like if you go in thinking you're the next Mozart, you're not going to be the next Mozart. Because the people that have to tell themselves that they're going to be the next Mozart don't have the self-confidence to be the next Mozart. Because, you know,
It's the people that go, "I will surpass Mozart,"
No.
or
that
similar.
just go in, this is what I fucking love doing. Fuck everyone that tells me I'm doing it wrong. Push the boundaries of what we think is possible for music, art, and writing. You know, fucking Lord of the Rings is a great example of that. You're putting too much detail in books. Oh, your book is simple. He got a lot of complaints about his stories.
Oh, I'm
Yep,
sure.
totally.
Like, you've heard a similar complaint from me. I don't think the man's very good at storytelling, but by God, can he make a world?
Yeah, exactly. And
I wish those books had not been recommended to me for storytelling, but for world building. Like I was given the wrong mindset starting those books out, and it was unfair to them.
And like Tolkien, again, is one of those individuals that a lot of people had a lot of criticism for originally, and then it turns out that no, because of Tolkien's self-assurance, and again, it wasn't, he didn't go in thinking I'm gonna push the boundaries. He didn't go in thinking, oh, I'm gonna do this or that. He went in going, I'm gonna make an amazing fucking story for.
Yeah,
Yep.
he did it for personal reasons. He wasn't looking to change anything. It's just I want to write, and it's gonna be for my kid.
And that's sort of how I approach other stories as well, and why I end up taking so fucking long on a lot of shit. Because I'll just sit there and be like, I don't want to be the next big thing. I want to be, I want to write a story that people can look at and go, yeah, that was pretty good.
Oh,
Like-
you have higher standards than me. I just want to write a story and finish it. I just want to write.
Yeah, no, I have a very high standard for myself, and it's not so much a pop or a success standard, I guess you could call. Like, War of Wizards. Barely anyone has ever seen that story. Barely anyone has ever read that story. I would be satisfied with writing a story on the same tier of War of Wizards. Because it was a series. It didn't get big acclaim. It didn't change the industry. It didn't really revolutionize anything. It didn't introduce anything. But the people who have read War of Wizards will most, in large part, say, yeah, that was a pretty good story. Like, you know, I just want to write a good story that people go, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, right, fair enough.
But yeah, so this guy's fucking jumping all around, and I mean, maybe this is gonna get people, and it does get people. It's got, 1,000 people. So I mean, good for him. But again, this is My Hero Academia is a large section, and he wrote 100K words, 9 chapters, and he updated sporadically. He probably caught a fair number of people in the net, both with the large chapter count, the low chapter number, and his rare updates maybe didn't help him too much, but it probably would get the. And then when you update it again in August, you would usually get different groupings of people, because between March and August, more people might have come in, started looking for fan fiction as the fandom grows. So while your periodic updates probably would have netted you more people over time, you can pick up large groupings of favorites and follows, as both Gray and I have noticed over time as certain fandoms swell and shrink.
Yeah, we really struck while the iron was hot with our Dark Souls story, Sneaky.
Yeah, I know, right? And then we stopped updating it, and Deku will not be overpowered.
By the way, that's the biggest thing. By the way, that line right there is why I'm like, I don't have any interest in the story now, because I'd like to see an overpowered Deku using one for all, or all for one, trying to hide its effects. Because if anyone in the story is gonna understand how fucking terrifying a quirk that steals others is, it's gonna be the quirkless kid that made studies of heroes and villains.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like, the conflict in this case is gonna be like, he doesn't have, like, the easiest way to make conflict for, if you want to keep Deku as a hero,
Mm-hmm.
while giving him one for all, is one, he has to hide one for all for one,
Mm-hmm.
and two, it doesn't come with the powers that all for one had originally banked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for whatever reason, all those are just gone.
Mhm.
So now it's like, he's got to balance out, well, I feel like I could use this quirk better, but I'm literally stealing a key part of this person by doing so.
Fair enough.
And when they figure out I'm the one who did it, I'm fucked.
Honestly, I
Because they're
would.
not going to let that stand.
Yeah, that's true. But honestly, personally, I would like to see what that one guy was talking about. Deku gains a quirk called Works Cited, where his knowledge of someone's quirk, it directly somehow interacts with him and him fighting them.
Well, he was describing how the author is treating the quirk. So that story exists, it just doesn't exist in the way you'd like.
And no, that's sort of my point. Is because the author is approaching this story from the standpoint of all for one and one for all. Well, I would like to see a story that's approaching from the standpoint of works cited, where it's not copy. I'm not saying like he copies the quirk or something, but it could be sort of in the flavor of either a MacGyver sort of scenario, or it could be in the flavor of a Worm Trump scenario, where a good example of this would be Campione. Have you ever seen Campione at all?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, so in
Still
Campione,
haven't.
yeah, so don't bother. In Campione, the main character gains access to a power called like the Sword of the Warrior or some shit, right? And
Okay.
the power of the sword is literally unmatched. It's the strongest power in the existence. But the caveat to the Sword of the Warrior is you can only cut that which you know. And so multiple times throughout the series, the main character can't defeat the bad guy until he finally figures out how the bad guy's power works. And once he figures out how the bad guy's power works, he can call upon the Sword of the Warrior and cut the bad guy's power, rendering him temporarily powerless, allowing him to follow up with a finishing attack.
Oh. Okay, yeah, that's actually a power I've played around with in my head, just unprompted, like,
That's what I'm saying,
here's some
like
interesting
works cited,
applications, yeah.
where you could go the support route with works cited, being a sort of like Deku learns about his allies' powers and then figures out a way. Basically, he finds the limits of the power, and then using his knowledge of the limits of the power, he's capable of pushing his allies forward by like modifying their power a bit or something. Yeah, like there's so much you can workshop with that, right? Like, or makes him, preternaturally.
Preternaturally?
Yeah, the whole like not quite supernaturally, but like beyond normal ability. Where he's like just exceptionally effective against people whose quirks he knows, where his body will, like, say someone's got like a wood shooting quirk and he figures out their quirk, and now because he knows how their quirk operates, he is suddenly better at dodging the wood that gets shot at him, because he's figured out how it arcs through the air and the speed behind it and the wind resistance on the wood and all of that shit, right?
Yeah. Which is something that we see him do on the fly, so
Right.
the framework's there.
Exactly.
It just needs to be filled.
Right. And there's a lot of ways you could leverage it, and there's a lot of ways you could go with it. And it would even fill in the gap of, why does everyone think Deku is quirkless? Oh, well, it's because he's never really fought anyone yet. Because, sure, yeah, he has notebooks upon notebooks. Again, because this is another thing is, quirks are supposed to alter your brain in a way that makes you use the quirk as if it was just something you're supposed to do normally. As, one would if you were born with 3 legs and your brain's like, oh, we're supposed to have 3 legs. So you just learned how to walk with 3 legs, and you never found it weird that you just walked with 2 legs because you have 3 legs, so why wouldn't you walk with 3 legs?
Yeah.
And so that would be easily tie-inable to how Deku constantly takes notes about everyone, constantly takes, in-depth pros and cons of their quirks and how they could be improved or disproved, and etc., etc. You could fit that into why he never showed a quirk before, because he's never fought anyone before, and he's never tried to change anyone's quirks before, so he would never have found out that he could fight people with quirks. And so you can easily slot that in. Easily slot that in.
Yeah, and you can even show the change immediately, where it's like, we don't know why a kid doesn't have a quirk. All his X-rays came out normal, just doesn't have a quirk. Because that was part of the big thing of like, you see this joint right here? Yeah, this means he can never have. That means he doesn't have a quirk.
Yeah, I don't know if this is whole fanon or canon thing, because
that is directly said.
No, I
by
know
doctor.
that's said in canon. Like I said, I don't know if this is a fanon or canon thing, because I've seen it referenced very often in fan fictions when Deku does have a quirk, where they
Oh,
go, oh,
um,
that method of telling if people have quirks isn't actually that good. It's got like a 60% success rate of telling if you have quirk or not or
yeah,
something.
no, I would just write that out. I just write the thing and be like, everything came back normal. All the tests we do say he's perfectly healthy, and
Right.
there's no reason he shouldn't have a quirk. He just doesn't have one.
Yeah, no, and like I said, that's
Because
fair enough. Just
yeah,
circumvent.
like
Yeah.
it's presented as a hard and fast rule that if this part of the foot is this way, they don't have a quirk. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if their foot's like everyone else's, that doesn't mean they will have one either. It seems like an accepted thing that again, it's a genetic lottery. Sometimes you shit out of luck, and sometimes you're left wondering the rest of your life if you even have one.
Indeed.
Like shit. I'm sure there's some dude who's like, I just don't know what my quirk is, and his quirk is slightly lucky. Like, but his quirk is penny on the ground. Every so often, he finds a penny. That's it. But
How
no
would
one
this
would try that
How would
because
this power work against Tinkertech? Tinkertech doesn't exist. That's how this power would work against Tinkertech. Tinkertech doesn't exist. This is My Hero Academia. Tinkertech is non-existent. Well, there
yeah,
is bullshitium in the tech. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
Bullshitium exists in the tech. It's just
there is probably someone who has a quirk of like I'm really good with machines, but for the most part, the
oh no,
support
there is.
section are all people.
No,
The support
there's
section is
specifically a character that can upload themselves to electronics and like travel through electricity and shit.
oh, don't remember them.
Yeah, it was like some super ass side character that like got mentioned like twice.
Yeah, but like
Um,
all the support characters we see are
yeah,
like, no, they have quirks. And in fact, Hatsume has a pretty useful quirk.
yeah,
She just doesn't give a fuck about hero work because machines are so much cooler to her.
yeah, exactly. And you know exactly. It's the sort of thing that's like, yeah, their quirk. What's their quirk? Oh well, they convert fat into nitrogen. It's like, oh, that's cool, I guess.
That doesn't
Interesting.
sound ideal.
It's like,
I don't know.
well, you know, it's like, oh, every time they breathe out, they can convert some of their fat to nitrogen or something, and it's completely useless. And so they're just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go be a business major or a support major instead, and I'm just gonna make equipment because I like, you know, economics or shit, whatever, instead of, you know, fighting. And that's the thing is that I did like that the author at least acknowledged that not everyone's powers were going to be combat applicable, and no matter the munchkinning involved, there is just some powers out there that are never going to be combat applicable. Like, oh yeah, this guy, yeah, he his spits like butter or something. Like, oh, unsalted or salted? Salted. Oh, okay. Numberman, the UA business major, pretty much, yeah. But I mean, Numberman could leverage his quirk to be combat capable. I'm
He
talking about
actually
like,
did at
yeah,
some points.
obviously he did, but I'm talking like really genuinely useless shit. Like, oh yeah, my sweat tastes like whatever food I ate last. That's that is the unfortunate reality. Is some people are just gonna get quirks like that. Oh yeah, my hands can turn backwards. Just just the reality of it. Some people are just gonna get really useless quirks, or really situation
People
specific
win the
quirks.
lottery, some people don't.
Yeah, pretty much. Some people get the shit lottery. Um, but yeah, no. So there's a lot you could do with a works cited like quirk, and there's a lot of workshopping you could do for it. Um, Personally, I don't have any interest in ever writing a My Hero Academia story because there's just too much shit going on. My ears are earbuds, yep, effectively, yeah. There's just too much shit going on in My Hero Academia, and you would have to either both flesh out a whole bunch of crap. Because if you're trying to write an observant character, the problem is with observant characters is you actually have to write the shit they're observing. So Unfortunately, a side effect of observant characters is you actually need to flesh out the world they're observing
Okay.
so they can observe the
Yeah.
world.
Now, there is a way to get around this. It's the Sherlock Holmes method, where you're observing the observer, and you're like, what the fuck did you even look at to come to this conclusion?
Yeah, basically.
What are you seeing about their quirk that no one else is really, like, getting?
My Hero
I
Academia
don't
seems like a very painful show to write a long, good fanfic for. Yeah, it effectively is, because the problem is there's so much shit
Yeah.
going on in it. The butterfly effect is real. Because even, like, I believe Steel Sabers are an actual thing. Yeah, the Steel Sabers, the hero-killing mercenaries, who have just been running around for decades. The hero-killing mercenaries.
Yeah, I'm gonna be
Running
honest,
around.
if I were to ever write something like Works Cited, it would probably just be maybe a 10,000 word long one shot is what I'd probably aim for.
That's fair, yeah, yeah.
It would be more like a, hey guys, this is just a proof of concept, and that's as far as this goes.
There... Izuku doesn't become the hero, he becomes the hero that creates heroes. And his whole job is that he shows up and talks to someone and figures out the intricacies of their quirk and then helps them mold it in their desire, effectively.
He's the Philoctetes without being a sassy Greek.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's the Chiron.
You know what? That would be his name, the Hero Maker.
All right, there you go.
You know what? That might be interesting, actually.
There's your
That
10K
might
one
be an
shot.
interesting thing where it's like he he gets shat on by day, but like he runs a blog or something for people. It's like, give me an idea of your quirk, oh, okay, go here on this day at this time, and he hides somewhere and just takes records of what they do.
Could be something. Could be something. A lot of things to hook into. Yeah, effectively, a lot of things to hook into. There's a lot of open-ended stuff as well in My Hero Academia that's kind of really confusing. And
Yeah.
you also have to deal with a lot of
Yeah.
the ingrained politics of authoritarian Japan in that mix as well. And there's a whole bunch of shit you just have to account for, and it's really just not enjoyable to write a long story for it. Unless you're unless that's where being the actual original fiction author, you have advantages because everything's new and everything you write is canon. So you don't have to worry about, say, a hyper authoritarian government getting in the business and interfering with your main character if you don't write it.
Yeah. By the way, Sneaky, speaking of authoritarian, YouTube just updated their terms of service again.
I noticed.
Oh.
They banned more shit.
Well, they also went full on, like, we can monetize whatever we want on this platform, and you can't stop us.
Yep, that too. Yeah.
Whether you're a part of the partner program or not. It's like, oh,
Yep.
so basically, I should jump ship to something like Odyssey or
Yeah, usually
Float
Odyssey is a
Plane
good
from
one.
Linus Tech Tips, like literally anything except you guys now.
Yeah. What you're gonna see is I'm calling it right now. I'm gonna do a JoJo move, as it's called, and I'm gonna call YouTube's next line is the next YouTube policy update is going to be about loosening the requirements, but also at the same time giving YouTube more creative freedom over the requirements for accepting partners. And effectively, what they're going to be setting up is a system in which popular videos that come from channels that they don't personally approve of, instead of granting that channel partnership due to the popularity of the channel, they can simply just monetize the popular channel and just wait for it to die out because it can't sustain itself, and then move on to the next popular channel that they don't approve of to monetize. While they...
No,
Mhm.
it's a good thing Patreon hasn't gone full on authoritarian yet
They
either,
already
then,
did.
because that's how well
It's too
that's
late. No, they
partly
already
how
did
Nux
that.
is.
They
Oh,
already banned people for stuff they said not on Patreon. And I remember there was even a case specifically, they just recently came out actually saying that if you want to continue using Patreon, you must abide by to the changes that Patreon makes to your written or drawn or programmed works. So say you're a programmer and you're getting income from Patreon. Patreon staff can come to you and say, we don't like that there is not an LGBT function in your program. You have to add that to your program or we are kicking you off of Patreon. That's part of their new policy. Yeah, I don't look. I really don't understand it. Like, from a business perspective, it fucking flabbergasts me. Okay, I do not understand why you would ever want to kick people off of your platform where they're making you money by you doing nothing. You are literally getting free money by the sheer process of merely existing. And you make the conscious decision to go, hey, you person, I don't like what you're doing. So instead of taking money from you, I'm going to stop taking money from you for literally no reason.
Okay, we're seeing a shift in we're seeing an interesting shift. Japanese companies used to do this, but now they're starting to realize, oh, if we just give them free reign, we'll get more money because they'll generate more views that we didn't have to pay shit for.
It hurts advertisers. It literally doesn't. It literally does not hurt advertisers at all. Advertisers are some of the dumbest fucking people in existence. They will literally put their advertisements on porn if they think they'll get more money from putting the advertisement on porn than they'll lose from putting it on the porn.
Yeah.
They are the dumbest fucking people in existence, and they pay zero. The people in charge of advertising pay zero fucking attention to the actual statistics. All they do is they go on Twitter, and if they see 2 people complaining about something, they go, oh, well, 2 people means 3,000 people hate this. And if 3,000 people hate this, that means arbitrarily 29 million people hate this. Because what advertisement, so I actually know advertisers. I've actually talked to advertisers. And what they do is they do this really fucking dumb shit, borderline retarded method called exponential extrapolation. And
this already has me upset as a term. I haven't even heard what it is, but it upsets me.
Yeah, so what they do is they take a sample size.
What this is.
Yeah, they take a sample size of, say, 100 people. And if one person dislikes something, they go, okay, so one person dislikes something. That means, 1,000 people, 10 people are going to dislike it. And 1,000,000 people, this many people are going to dislike it. And if one person dislikes something, then, so if one person hates something, that means at least 20 people dislike it. How do those 20 people dislike it? We don't know. We only asked if people hated it. But we can just make up how many people we think might estimatedly dislike something and then extrapolate up the scaling.
This is literally the joke about how 63% of all statistics are made up, taken too literally.
Yes, it is. I shit you, it is the dumbest fucking shit in existence. They just arbitrarily make numbers up based off of nothing and then just scale it up and go, oh my god, 29 million people hate us. It's like,
you know what my favorite part about that is?
Hates you.
You know what my favorite part about that is? That ignores the ratio they set.
Yes.
1% of the people you polled didn't like it, which means the other 99% either liked it or just didn't care.
Yes. So that's
why
the
are you
issue.
listening to the 1%?
Because they only polled for that 1%. It's a common error in larger businesses is the statistics that get polled are the statistics that get listened to. So for example, I'm going to use Blizzard and WoW and their latest expansion pack, Shadowlands. So Blizzard has a couple of daily functions you can do in their MMO, WoW. And these are new additions as per a couple expansion packs ago, called World Quests, which are sort of like daily quests, except they spawn in the world on a rotation. And at first, the
every
statistic...
24 hours, a
right.
quest spawns in a random location in a random zone.
And at first, people didn't really do them. And so they said, oh my god, people don't like doing these world quests. No one's doing them. Let's add incentives to them. So they add incentives to the world quests. And they go, oh wow, the statistics of people doing world quests is way up. They enjoy the world quests. No, they just enjoy the incentive of doing the world quest. But they don't
Everyone
poll.
fucking hates them.
Yeah, they don't poll. No, that's stage. This is stage 2. We're getting to stage 3 in a second. So because they never polled for the enjoyment of the world quest, and they only polled for the activity of the world quest, they then implement more world quests. And because they want more people to play them, they instead make them mandatory. And now activity on world quests is massive. But people are only doing them because they have to do them now, not because they enjoy the reward or because they enjoy doing the quest, but because now the metrics required around the world quest polling is not enjoyment or interactivity or any sort of like that. It's just, are they getting done? They're getting arbitrary statistics that aren't actually linked to anything in the game.
Yeah,
Fucking
no,
Flappy Bird in WoW.
Yeah, they put Flappy
yeah,
Bird.
I've seen instances like this where the Warframe community learned real hard that if only a handful of people interact in surveys,
Yeah,
tryhards get their wish and everyone else gets fucked.
right.
So
And
3% of the community gets rewarded. The other 97% just trying to enjoy the game because they
Mhm.
spent hundreds of hours making a build that is near perfect
Yep.
for 90% of the content.
I
It's
assume
not
you're,
only perfect for 50%.
I assume you're talking about Payday.
No, I'm talking about Warframe.
Warframe.
Oh, yeah.
Payday 2 is a great example as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Payday 2
of
is
course,
another great example. Yeah.
in Payday 2's defense, though, it is pretty much just it. By the time they started getting ridiculous with the content, when you and I started dropping it,
Yeah.
it really was mostly just the hardcore crowd at that point.
And now
Whereas
don't get me wrong.
Warframe
Don't get me wrong.
constantly attracting people.
I don't get me wrong. It goes both ways, unfortunately. Where Payday 2 went the route of pandering to a smaller and smaller audience, and because they kept pandering to the smaller audience, they kept losing people, which made them pander to the smaller audience more because, oh no, we're losing people, we need to pander to what the people want. But the people you're pandering to are why you're losing people. And then meanwhile, WoW is actually the opposite direction, is they've simplified and dumbed down and pandered to the wide audience so much, they're now losing people because the net is so wide. The holes in the net are so massive that you're just losing people by the thousands now, every single day. They've lost literally millions of people because of how wide this net they've cast is.
Yep.
You make the net too
Meanwhile,
small, you
Warframe-
catch nothing. If you make the net too big, you catch nothing.
Yeah, meanwhile, Warframe finally found a happy medium. It only took them a year and a half or 2 years, but they
Yeah.
found it.
You know, I like it when we're educational here because I actually get to rant about good stuff.
Yes.
It's just a shame that every time we get to actually be educational and talk about stuff like this, no one's here.
Yeah, it's really
But
weird.
we really only get to discuss this stuff when certain quote unquote guest stars aren't here.
Yeah, more or less.
Yes.
Post.
Either they dominate the conversation, or they don't give a shit and they steer it away from the conversation, or so many other shit.
More or less. Well, it's not only that, it's also for some reason, it's the fix I choose as well that send me off in the tangents that actually do educational shit. Because, like, right there, we had 2 fics in a row that maybe just sit there and talk about the issues surrounding the fic and other real life examples with that fic, with the issues that fic exhibits that I get to talk about. Because usually we just get really garbage fanfics that I just really can't talk about too many issues surrounding it because it's just written to such a low quality level that I can't actually talk about the inherent issues in it beyond its low quality.
Yeah, and Gray and I get to participate.
Hello, I am no one. Yeah, I know.
Yay.
Yeah, Underplayed. I appreciate you showing up, man. But we got like 4 people here. You don't understand. Like back in the day, we had like 42 people here.
At one point, we used to make that, yes.
I mean, at one point, that Twitch recorded my height at 75 people watching. Steering away from the conversation is due to us being us rather than being intentional. No, I'm aware. I'm just saying it's I'm okay with steering away from the conversation as long as you're being educational about it. But a lot of times I just rant about shit, and it's because I'm just not interested in the story. Because the story's just bad and doesn't really give me much to talk about. And that's just the problem with doing live reactions to stories, is that sometimes we'll just get a story that's just like so bland and boring that I want to talk about anything but that. And sometimes we'll get stories that are bland and boring or done poorly that actually have an issue I can talk about that's relevant to both the industry itself, or the greater creative industry of art, writing, music, and etc.
Yep.
Yep.
It's an absolute crapshoot.
You know what? I want to see someone do a King Arthur crossover with any modern fan fiction, but I literally just want to be the writing style of the original King Arthur written stories.
Oh, where shit just gets ridiculous?
No, shit doesn't get ridiculous. There's no descriptions
What do you mean?
at all. Have you not read like old Arthurian legend? Like actually read untranslated old Arthurian legend?
No, I have not.
Oh.
It Bedivere smote blank, and then turned and smote blank, and he struck upon his shield. Like it. There's a lot of smoting.
Okay, well,
There's a lot of smoting.
it sounds a lot more like they're reading passages from a Bible, is what I'm hearing.
I wonder why.
Yes.
Sounds
I wonder what
why.
that would be.
I wonder why, Max. I wonder why.
Yeah. It's not great.
It's almost
I
like
tried
the
so
popular
hard.
written mediums of that time period heavily influenced other creative works. It's almost like the popular mediums of that time period influenced other creative works. Why are you talking about fan fiction so much, Sneaky? It's just fan fiction.
But
Bitch, it ain't.
hang on. Let me. Oh, where is my phone? Phone, come back. Hang on. Let me pull this up because I've got a collection of the most popular Arthurian legends. By the way,
Cool.
Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court considered popular Arthurian legend. Don't you know?
I see.
What?
No,
I don't
I've
know.
heard about that. Yeah, I've heard about that.
Oh, it's actually a pretty decently written story.
Yeah. But no, that's my point though. Is I actually talk to people in real life. Shocker, I know, but I actually talk to people in real life, and when I talk about the sort of shit that I talk about on this podcast, it's like, what does it matter? And also on other Discords, to caveat this, and also on other Discords. What does it matter, man? It's just fan fiction. It's like, yeah, it's just fan fiction. Sure, but that doesn't stop someone from, say, reading a fanfic, being inspired by a topic they saw in the fanfic, and then going on to write a story
Around that.
an actual original story that gets published, whether as a movie, an episode in a show, the show itself, etc., etc.
Yeah,
And now
it's novels and movies too.
Yeah, and novels, etc., and games. And so, yes, technically, they never were involved in fan fiction. They just merely read a popular medium at the time and influenced by it. Yeah, okay. It looks like I'm fucking right again. And not only that, it's a little bit more than that because, well, the Mass Effect Andromeda writer used to write a sorry Mass Effect smut.
It
It took me a second. It took my brain a second to be like, oh, he's talking about the alien species. Sorry, not
Yes.
a sorry.
Yes, no.
Story.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a poor word choice for that.
One of
That
the
species.
most popular female books in the Western Hemisphere is a fanfic. YA
Yep.
novels. We can see huge impact from the YA novel era. Huge impact from the YA novel era on current generation written works, movies, video games, etc. We can see huge impact stemming from shit like Tumblr. And I don't even mean people that were on Tumblr. I mean people that looked at Tumblr. I mean people that just merely post on Tumblr, just went from favorite Tumblr blog to favorite Tumblr blog. Only ever read shit. They didn't even have a Tumblr account. All they did is they fucking read shit on Tumblr, and they had a bunch of fucking bookmarked favorites that they just kind of scrolled through like some demented madman with over 800 favorites on their fucking bookmarks. And that they just absorbed it all, and because they enjoyed it, and then when they knew somebody who knew a guy, and then they became the next writer, and what do you know? We have Steven fucking Universe.
Yeah.
Please don't bring up YA. That stuff is physically painful, and that's before mentioning that when I say I read people getting the Throne of Glass and other such YA shovelware. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. No, and I understand, and I was a YA novel reader when I was a YA. But
Yeah.
I didn't stick to those stories. Yeah, I didn't stick to those stories, and I'll still go back, and I actually cleaned out my bookshelf at my father's house because arbitrarily I was decided that my stuff was less important than everyone else's stuff, and so to make room, they just had me throw out a bunch of books, and I'm just like, oh, I like these books, but it's whatever. I was going through my massive bookshelf of all the books that I bought with my own money that I was being forced to throw out without recompensation. And there was a lot of books that I would really never recommend to anyone. Like, I read them during the time, obviously, everything on my bookshelf is something I read. And I read a lot of YA stuff. And there was quite a number of them that I would never recommend to anyone. But there was quite a few on there as well that I would be like, well, no, this is still good. Even now, even, 12 years later, this is still good. I am a young adult and I've never liked YA shit. Well, generational thing, I suppose, then. But it gets me frustrated. I guess it's the portrayal. I guess it's sort of like a gamer situation where back in early 2000s.
How old is Isley?
Like 19, 20.
Well, that's not really YA then. YA is usually more like 15 to 17, like they're on the cusp of figuring out what it is to be an adult.
Yeah, Isley's 20.
You are not a young adult.
Yeah, no, you're 5 years older than a young adult, my dude.
You get over yourself. Welcome to the boomer generation.
Yeah, young adult. I know. YA is young adult. It's like YA is teenagers. They're called young adults because it's supposed to appeal to a teenager's sense of being an adult, but they're not, and so everyone just calls them young adults. No, young adult doesn't actually imply being an adult. A young adult actually implies being younger than an adult.
Okay, well,
it's wordplay.
No, hang on, Sneaky. By Isley's logic, we're still young. So.
Yeah, but my joints creak when I wake up in the morning, Max. I've given up on being young.
That's just old man syndrome. Just walk it off.
Even at 15, I hated them. That's fair enough.
Bones breaking.
I just read a lot. I was a very lonely kid, so I ended up reading a lot. And
Same.
I read all of Twilight. I read all the Twilight books as well. It was an okay series, honestly. Nothing special. Really, nothing special. There was literally not a single fucking special thing about that. And there was quite a number of times where I had to put the book down for a little bit. Because I was just like, this is just dumb. Like, there's no reason why any of this is happening. It's just so silly and weird. But, you know, I fucking grew up on Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, so there was really nothing that could top that in terms of just what the fuck is going on. So I ended up reading all of Twilight. But that kind of reinforces my point, though, isn't it? Because I grew up reading Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, I was capable of reading really dog shit writing because there was nothing weirder than Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe.
I can attest to that.
I never read the 50 Shades book.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's honestly, it's kind of everything, literally everything just proves my point, and people just refuse to see it. Where I'm just constantly pointing towards a popular medium, and people are just like, oh, well, that's just a popular medium. It doesn't actually have anything to do with anything else that I enjoy. It's like, it clearly does. I can literally point to dozens of examples where directly linked impact to something that you currently is in published medium, I should say. So you have popular medium and published medium. I can clearly point to a bunch of things, and people just kind of brush it off because they're like, oh, it's just fan fiction. It's like, it's just because if it's inherent property of it being fan fiction, it's for some reason of lesser notice. And it's frustrating. And it's sort of like the whole gamer thing of like early 2000s where you played video games and you were looked at this weird kind of person for playing video games. And now it's like an actual market that fucking companies devote themselves towards advertising towards. And so it's just like... Right now, yeah, people aren't taking it seriously, and yet gamers ended up shaping a lot of the market, of the current day markets, like fucking esports and garbage, you know? That wouldn't have happened, you know, if gamers weren't around and weren't the kind of dedicated fan base that they were. And, you know, Tumblr had a bunch of dedicated fan bases, and we've all seen how that fucking worked out. Multiple suicides, thanks, Tumblr. Magician's Apprentice and Last Battle. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ, Magician's Apprentice. Oh, I almost forgot about that one. So anyway, we're going to wrap up the night with this other short story that I picked up right here. It's a high school DxD story. Called High School DxD, Temporal Reversion. So this is another very popular story with a large amount of words and a large amount of updates, a large amount of favorites to go with it as well. So Issei is dying from Samuel's curse, and Ophis decided to give Issei a second chance. This is a time-traveling fic where Issei will relive his previous 10 years of his life, fights new enemies, and goes on new adventures. This is a rewrite of another fic from a different writer called Gunmare. The Harem Will Continue. It's a romance adventure story involving Rias, Issei, Akeno, and Ophis. Now, it's only at 50 chapters, which is respectable, but it's got about 4K words per chapter, putting it at around 210K words total. Got around 3,000 favorites, 1,230 reviews, and it has been ongoing for the past 5 years. So, all that being said, I have to tip my hat to the author's dedication to this, even if Gray and I are currently massively outpacing him in both words and speed. Even at our glacial pace. But, there's a lot of red flags here. A lot of red flags in terms of story content that generally don't make for the best of stories. Time travel is a very finicky thing. Even in original content stories, time travel is a very finicky thing because it opens up a lot of problems. And if you'll notice with Marvel and DC, they've solved these time travel problems by either saying every single possibility is a new AU universe that exists now in the Marvel universe or DC universe, or they go the route of we're just going to ignore it until it stops existing in the minds of our readers. These are not good strategies to have. Marvel and DC are good examples of what happens when you rely too much on your brand name to continued support for your titles. Eventually, your brand name gets turned into Iron Man. Your brand name gets turned into Batman. Your brand name gets turned into the Avengers. And you really can't distance yourself from that anymore. For example, the Eternals. Have you ever heard of them? No?
Don't remember if I
Uh,
did.
Feel like
Exactly.
I've heard them in passing.
Exactly. Literally, no one's ever heard of them. And they're an old set of crew, but literally no one's ever heard of them. And the reason why is because no one cares. They found their niche, whether that was Iron Man, the Avengers, Thor, Loki, etc., of your countless flagship properties. And they didn't really tread outside them because they liked what they liked, and there was no real point in going farther than that for a lot of people. And the company never really made any effort to change or produce new products. It's sort of like how BioWare got pegged into that sort of morality compass thing they did with Mass Effect. And it's a BioWare game, it's got to have a morality compass. It's because the company got good results with it for a while, but because they never really tried to change anything with it, they ended up getting pigeonholed into that mechanic, and it just became expected that they had to use that mechanic. So even when they didn't really want to use that mechanic, they ended up using it anyway because people just expected that from their games from now on. And the games that they didn't do with that mechanic in them, people didn't like as much. Rather, regardless of because that's a mechanic issue or not, oftentimes the games that they try, the comics especially these days, the comics and games and etc. and other media they try and produce without these flagship trademarks in them effectively, whether that's a game mechanic itself or a certain character, they usually end up making really shit games and then draw a false conclusion of nobody liked our game or a comic or movie because they didn't have X character, X mechanic, X story in. When in reality, people didn't like it because it was bad. Because usually the company got so used to making things in a specific way that their creators got lazy, and so when they had to go outside of their comfort zone of just copy and pasting the same story or same characters constantly, turns out that they are not that good at making characters anymore, or making mechanics anymore, or making anything anymore. And so the second that the nostalgia trademark has been ripped from their property, people don't like it anymore. What? Dragon Ball Gain, which is predicated on Gain going with Goku to Earth when he was a baby. Gain is Goku's mom. I don't know anything about that. No one knows about the Beyonder, and that's a shame. Yeah, that's true. Again, exactly. No one really knew about Static Shock either for a long period of time. Now suddenly he's back. Also, he's part of Black Lives Matter. That's a damn shame, because that was actually a really good series.
They made an animated series
Oh,
a couple years ago.
a
That
couple
was
years ago. Oh,
great.
that's right. Yeah. Ooh, no, I liked the old early 2000s one. That was a good one.
I don't remember when it was, but I just remember it existed. I enjoyed it for a while, and then it just disappeared.
Yeah, it's because they ended it because they prematurely canceled the Cartoon Network Static Shock back in the early 2000s. Supposedly because it wasn't getting good ratings, but in reality, it's probably because the people at Cartoon Network are actually a little bit racist. And I don't mean like I don't mean that like an SJW way. I mean like actually legitimately like they thought black people weren't making good ratings, so they canceled the show. Like that sort of racist stuff. Like actually racist. Not just because like, oh, they didn't include a black character, they're racist. Like, no, like they're legitimately racist. They thought it was doing bad because they had a black character in it, so they quietly canceled it and smothered it in sleep.
Yeah, it was the 2000 one that I was thinking of.
Yeah. Friendly reminder that Demon Slayer, Demon Slayer outsold all American comics last year put together.
Not surprising.
Yeah, I've been following that saga effectively, and yeah, it's a fucking shit show. It's a fucking shit show, and it's because Demon Slayer was actually a creative endeavor, and the comic companies in this day and age aren't, because of what I said earlier. But like I said, back to the whole point of time travel. Time travel, it's a bad thing. Don't really include it in your stories. Time travel in your stories always leads to the overcomplication of everything, effectively. And it's almost never good. Occasionally, you can have a good story based on the characters, and you kind of do the Marvel method of let's just ignore the time travel until people forget about it. And it can make a good story, but again, you wouldn't need to ignore the time travel if you didn't do it in the first place. And now, to be fair, Undertale did use time travel, and it was a good story because of the time travel, but because it specifically focused on the time travel, it was a good story. Because it handled the time travel, and it made a specific point of dedicating screen time to handling the time travel. And that's not always a great choice to make, especially in a more linear written medium. With games, you can ignore the time travel in Undertale and never know about it. You can flat out never even find out that time travel is happening in Undertale, and you can have beaten the game. It's only when you actually play the game a shit ton and investigate every fucking opportunity that you actually learn about the time travel. But other than that, yeah, you never really learn about it. Unless you go out of your way to do so. And when you do go out of your way to do so, the game actually handles it really well. But you can't really do that in a linear story because, well, it's linear. And you have to write for an audience that's reading your story, and not an audience that wants to do a choose your own adventure until they scrape every bottom of the story. That's what sequels and side stories are for. Gravity Falls, it wasn't even that crazy because of the nature of the setting. Yeah, Gravity Falls did a great job with that again as well, because they also focused on that a bit, and they really set everything up around that beforehand as well. Again, so because Gravity Falls took a very direct method of making that a key part of the whole narrative, it did well. But that is because of the theme of Gravity Falls. It wouldn't really work if your story is about your character, being a ninja, and then they end up going back in time. Time travel really wouldn't play too much of a part in it because the story's not about the time travel. The story's about them being a ninja now back in time. So getting the time travel and explaining the time travel and getting around it and ending it or closing the loop and all of that stuff, that would just muck up the narrative of a linear story. Because it's not about the time travel. It's not about the weird event of the day. It's not about any of that. It's about the ninja being back in time. Which makes it harder to handle. So anyway, a couple of things here. So this deals with a very late game Issei. As it says, 10 years. This is all canon, by the way, sort of-ish. Issei at one point does get cursed pretty heavily, and basically the Dragon of Dreams creates Issei's body out of his flesh, and Ophis blesses him, the infinite Dragon of Infinity, blesses him with her power, and so he basically becomes really fucking ridiculously super powerful. And the deviation in this story is that he doesn't get cured in time or something, and Ophis sends him back in time instead of being converted into a demi-dragon sort of creature thing. Yeah, honestly, they handled Ophis really terribly. They adopt Ophis as their child, and that's just weird on so many levels. It's like adopting your great-grandfather as your child while they're currently your great-grandfather. It's not even like Ophis somehow got kidified. It's not even like Ophis somehow became a child in some form or fashion. It's like, no, Ophis existed from the dawn of time, and then just showed up on Issei's doorstep, and he's like, "Oh, you're now my kid," and she was like, "Okay." Yeah, it was
It's
fucking
a
weird.
mess, and it's Japanese. That's all there is to say about it.
Yeah, pretty much. It was fucking bad. Recently, I read a high school DxD fic by Gunmare, but I was disappointed when he decided to reboot it. I decided to contact him and find out if I could take the series, I guess. And I'm happy to say that he agreed and is now helping me write his original version. So an author of a story you like realized that the original version of the story was garbage, and that if he wanted to make a actual coherent story, he needed to reboot it. And you, the reader, decided that the original version wasn't garbage, despite the fact that the author that wrote it that you like realized, the person writing the story, the guy fucking making the blueprint said, "Oh shit, this work." But you, the person looking at the model, said, "No, man, this is totally gonna work. Give me the model and the blueprints." Okay. Alright. I don't dig it. I'm gonna be real, I don't dig it. It sounds pretty fucking dumb. If the guy, like, I can understand sort of if you're like, "Oh, well, the author discontinued the story and I really liked it, so I wanted to keep it going." And again, those sort of stories also usually die pretty fucking quickly as well. But I mean, the author rebooted it. It's not they discontinued it. They said, "Okay, how I set up this story didn't work to make an actual coherent story, so I'm going to retry making this premise again." And you said, "Nope, that's all wrong. You're wrong, author of the story that I like. I'm going to keep writing the story that you, the author of the story I like, decided wasn't going to work." That's bold. That's very bold. At first I thought I was having audio issues because of Discord or Twitch, but instead I think Sneaky Tech is kicking and screwing shit up when he starts getting aggravated. What you don't know,
No, that's
Sneaky...
him taking his mic from sometimes.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out, but it's hard, okay? Ah! That should work better.
Quit peeking your mic.
I actually made sure that I didn't peek my mic when I did that.
Also, it's 9 o'clock, so we can skip the
Yeah.
story and wrap up the rants.
Yeah, I'm probably just gonna rant about this because I really, again, I don't really care about this story. I more care about the whole premise around the creation of this story than the actual story itself. So I was just gonna cover that and then move on to closing and whatnot. Is the reader? What you know, the reader is the analog of the string theory that they could somehow make shit into gold and nobody knows how. Yeah, basically, not even the writer knows how to do that. Story will basically be similar, but in my writing style, because there'll be some significant changes. What? I didn't like that he was rebooting a story I enjoyed, so I asked him if I could write it. He agreed to give me the original premise. However, the original premise will be modified by the fact that I will be writing it now, and there'll be significant changes to the story because I didn't like how he did some of the things that he probably rebooted it over.
And dumbass.
Am I the only fucking person here who's like going, "Oh, wait, maybe, maybe he's rebooting it for a reason"? Like, you literally just said, "I hate the fact that you're rebooting it. There's nothing wrong with this story. Also, by the way, I'm changing a bunch of shit in this story because I find a bunch of things wrong with this story." What the fuck are you doing, author?
Stuff.
So, literally garbage, blah blah blah, Issei's dying, blah blah blah, Ophis sends him back in time, blah 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 blah. Ophis, do you want to be my friend? How would I benefit from being your friend? I could be someone you can talk to. I see. Talking to you is fun. Okay, Ophis, come live with me when I go back in time. Is it security? Yes, I would like it, but you won't make it. You won't make it until the gate opens. Blah, 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 blah. Issei, we're friends now. Blah, blah, blah. What if I sent you back in time 10 years with your memories? I can then be your friend 10 years ago. Well, that'd be cool. Can you do that? Yeah, I'm Ophis. I can do that. Okay, I'm sending you back now, Issei. Alright, Issei, make sure to contact me when you get back so we can be friends. Okay, bye. Poof. That's literally the first chapter. Literally no fucking hook at all. So there's no hook here. There was nothing about the first chapter of that story that made me go, shut. There's literally nothing there. You didn't even. He goes back and, you know, like, when you do the whole time travel thing, an important part of the first chapter as the hook of the story is to include the hook. The hook can't be you going back in time. The hook has to be what happens when you go back in time. Because you going back in time is so fucking generic that literally no one's gonna be like, let's go back in time. I should read more. No, I can only say that when this first chapter first came out, it got likes and follows and favorites and whatever because the story just came out and some people like looking at the first chapter of stories. It got a group of people who came from the original of the story, and then chapter 2 is where people actually started showing up and started staying because there was no fucking hook in chapter 1. The only hook that existed in chapter 1 was in the fucking author's notes where he said, hey, if you guys like this story, then this is an off branch of this story that you might have liked. That's the hook in the fucking author's notes. There is no narrative hook in the first fucking chapter. Oh, we're friends now, Ophis. Oh, I like friends. Yay. Oh, I'll send you back in time now. Oh, great. Yay. That's the first fucking chapter. That's it. Supposed to be drawn in by that? Oh, God. I hate it. I despise it with every fiber of my being. I despise how just flat creative writing has become. I mean, like, even back in the day, even if it's cringy to look back on, even back in the day when we first started our journey in fanfiction, Max, people were creative. Like, people took out some really out there ideas and really tried to make it work. Like, some really out there ideas with the various fandoms they were in and tried to make them work.
I know. One of them was the direct competitor to our story in a way.
Yes. Yeah, I know, right? Like back in the day, like, people really were out there. No matter what fandom, people had some wild theories and they really tried to implement them. I mean, obviously, of course, you have your plenty of shit, but like now in this day and age, current day and age, I'm going through stories and it's the same trope after the same trope after the same trope. No original fucking ideas anymore. It's just, oh, I was inspired by this story. Oh, I'm taking inspiration from that story. No, like, oh, I had this one idea in my head and I really wanted to get it down because it's just so out there. So, like, what if? There's nothing like that anymore. No, nothing like that in the published fiction. Yeah, occasionally, yeah, sure. But fucking monkeys on a typewriter, you know? Nothing out there in the published fiction section. Nothing out there in the fan fiction section. It's all fucking inspired, insipid shit these days. There's nothing new about any of them. Yeah, sure, Salvage was sort of new, but, like, Salvage is good. So, context here. Salvage is a Cancol Abyssal main character story that was recommended to me on my recent bender, trying to look for these stories, in which the main character is your standard isekai OC that doesn't really remember anything from their previous life, so they can pretty much throw all of that personally out and just kind of goes on misadventures as an abyssal princess in Cancol. But the thing is that the first, like, about 10 or so chapters are super fucking rough. And I don't mean rough in the writing, because they were rough in the writing too. Like, whoa, there's V2s of all of them now, and they've been bedded 3 times. Whoa, they were bad. but I mean rough in the character sense. Like, if you had seen this story and the first, like, if you had the V2, I'll even give the caveat of having the V2 version of the first 10 chapters. If you had seen Salvage for its first 10 chapters, it is bland. It is generic. It had garbage writing, garbage plot, garbage character arcs. It had a couple of interesting things. The only really interesting thing for the first 14 or 15 chapters was the fact that the Abyssal Princess happened upon a half-dead ship girl and rescued her because she didn't know she was supposed to hate ship girls because she had amnesia on both sides, which again was a failure on the author's end for not really knowing a lot about the Abyssal shit. So they kind of just were like, oh, well, they have amnesia, and whenever I need to have something get done, I can just have the captain be basically the wiki. It's like, okay. Yeah.
Don't know about that one, Chief.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, they freaked out. They had one point, so they reincarnated as a nuclear-powered submarine. And the captain goes, "You're a nuclear-powered submarine." What? I'm a nuclear bomb! Oh no, am I going to explode? It's like, what?
Oh.
What? It was some, there were early on, there was some, it was garbage personality of the main character, garbage takes from the main character, like, oh, I don't want to hurt anyone, killing is wrong. It's like, bro, what? You're literally an eldritch demon of death and horror. And then there was no character moment where they got over that. It's just the author stopped remembering that was their character and just had them do other shit and just completely forgot that that was the opinions their character originally had. And they basically invented a new OC to replace their current OC to fit the plot changes that occurred. There was no character development where the character changed their mentality and ideas and they were confronted with scenarios. It's just nope. This chapter, they're complaining about killing people. Next chapter, they're drowning people alive. Why? Because they did. No reason given. They just did. But given the first two chapters, it was just generic garbage. And the only thing that it has going for it is that it's interesting now in the later chapters. And, if is what it is. Bland, generic garbage is that story learned, that story got interesting, but for every Salvage story I read, for every Hunger or Where We Tread or all those other stories that I read that were decent, in their entirety, not just at the beginning, there was a bunch of them that was just garbage, where it's like, oh, this is a trans OC ship girl who was previously male and always wanted to be female, and now they're a ship girl, and they're taking notes about their life, and it's supposed to be a story about killing and stuff, except they're also an abyssal, and they're they have to kill people, and they're being threatened at gunpoint to kill people, and they refuse. But it's actually not a moral issue, because they don't ever end up killing people anyway. It's like, what? Yeah, it's dumb, stupid, weird shit, and it's just not creative at all, and it's just boring. It's just flooding the market with just not even generic garbage, because at least generic garbage tries to be like Tolkien and tries to be like Star Wars and tries to be like all of the stuff that was actually good. This is just it's like fucking cardboard. That's what it is. It's not even attempting to look like anything good. It's just someone handed you a piece of soggy cardboard. It's like, wow. Outstanding. This is fucking useless. Congratulations. But anyway,
Made garbage.
It's literally garbage. Soggy cardboard can't even serve as cardboard anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's the way it is. So I'm done with my rants. Do you have anything else to add, Max?
No, not particularly.
Alrighty, well then we'll see you all next time, and hopefully with more people. Because when we have more people, we actually get to have fun discussions like this stuff, and I don't just rant on about the same topic over and over again. So, next time will be Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Because, of course, there is always more, and it always gets worse.